Today I'm here with Dan Pelosi, the self-proclaimed Italian meatball behind your new soon-to-be favorite food Instagram account, Grossy Pelosi. So hi, Dan. Thank you so much for
Hi.
coming. What is the story behind Grossy? Your IG handle, Grossy Pelosi.
The famous Drew Barrymore movie, Never Been Kissed, came out. And in that movie, her nickname is Josie Grossy. And so my college friends were always drunk and making fun of me, which was fine.
As they do.
As they do. And they started calling me Grossy Pelosi. I have like probably too much self-confidence in a lot of areas. So I didn't take it as an insult. I was like, that's amazing. I love it. It's so fun. So thank you, Drew Barrymore.
Thank you, Drew. At the very beginning of the pandemic, I feel
Yeah.
like you had maybe 12,000 Instagram followers. And now you have like almost 80. And now this is your livelihood. So like, what has that journey been like?
At the very beginning of the pandemic, like day one, I had like 6,000 Instagram followers. So you probably found me like a couple weeks after that, which is crazy. I realized I sort of grew up living in sort of what we now call lockdown. My family, all we did was stay home. We cooked, we created really comfortable environments. People would come over, they would hang out, they would sort of nest there. We always had food. My mom could, and my grandparents and my dad and everyone could always put together a meal within minutes because we had all the ingredients, right? So I just sort of was always prepared for that. And I grew up and really spent my weekends as an adult doing the same thing, hosting people, putting together meals, bringing people together around food, talking about food, oversharing. I'm a very, very big oversharer. I realized day one of working from home that I was able to share what I was doing all day long now, right? Because I was cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. People responded because I wasn't a professional chef. I was someone who was stuck at home cooking all day, and that's what everyone else wished they were doing, but they were stuck at home trying to figure out how to feed themselves and didn't know how. I just became suddenly relevant after years of people being like, do you want to go out on Saturday? And I'd be like, no, I do not. I'm not like a serious, like overly trained chef. I was trained by my really great family and friends who all are, in different areas of cooking and do it for nourishment and to make families and people have, feel better and to sort of provide life to them. It wasn't, so I think what I was able to do is take those really simple skills of just like making you feel a little better through comfort food or learning the best way to fry an egg and, just doing the really the basics, how to stock a pantry, all those things people really needed. And I had the ability to do. I couldn't tell you how to do some of the more complex cooking things because that's not my history. My history is making really simple, delicious food that you could make for yourself.
Most people won't be able to make like a souffle or something.
Yeah.
Or do I have any particular interest in
Totally.
make a souffle? But I would like to know how to like make a delicious meal for me and a friend or family member.
It's been really interesting for me too because people are always like, oh, I wish you could cook for me. I wish you could make this for me. And I'm like, no, I'm here to like help you be the one who makes it because you can. And I think that that's been really interesting. It's like there's been a lot of breaking down people's ideas of what food should look like or what it should be and reminding them that like if you're taking a bite of something, it's food,
Yeah, and if it tastes delicious, it doesn't have to be perfect or doesn't have to like perfect
or if it doesn't taste delicious, right? It's still valid because it's part of like your experience.
I love that.
Like, the expectations around something looking amazing, being on the right plate, and tasting delicious need to be like dismantled.
That I hadn't ever really thought about that, but it kind of like parlays a little bit into the fact that in the world we live in now and like this very Instagram, like visual kind of like presentation as everything type of world where we're all trying to make ourselves look a certain way on the internet. There's that expectation with food too and with cooking, and that probably stops a lot of people from even trying.
It totally does.
I'm not going to be a great chef. Like, why should I try?
It's funny because now I know why, because I reshare a lot of stuff that people make, right? Like people will make my recipes and they'll photograph them and they will share them. And I am so happy when anyone does that because I'm like, that means that they made it, they loved it, and they have the confidence to share a photo of it. And unfortunately, everyone has an opinion. Some people will message me and say, "Oh my God, can you believe how like bad that person's meal looks?" And I'm like, "No, like," and I'm like, "What? Like, no, like none of that around here. Like, that person is proud of what they made. They're associating it with me. I'm stoked.
You mentioned that you always took a lot of photos, right? Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
when you didn't have a ton of followers. How have you been able to kind of like stay present and like stay in the moment while also capturing all this content? Because it feels very genuine.
Because I've done it for years. But I'm a pleaser and I want everyone to be happy. And I feel like every one of my followers is like one of my kids, and I want to make them, you know. I was with my boyfriend and my two best friends this week, and we were traveling, and they really noticed that I'm much better now at it not impacting the IRL than I used to be. Before, when I had no followers, I used to be like, okay, everyone, like, don't take, like, stop, like, do this, don't do that. And then I would start posting.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because it is my life and my job, I've also been doing it so much more, taking pics as I go, silently, kind of just grabbing stuff, and then later on really creating a better curated experience of it, or sharing it better.
When you don't post, are people like, where are you?
My mom is.
Oh yes, mama, #1 follower.
I'm like a mother's dream because she knows everything that's going on.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, this is all I've ever wanted. You're like, mom, you and my 80,000 kids.
Yeah.
All of you. I love that you call them your kids too. It feels like a very loving, positive community, and probably in large part because you don't tolerate trolls or people being negative, which I so appreciate.
I try really hard.
What was the moment that you kind of realized like, oh, this is like happening and this is really going in this direction?
I think when people, like 2 weeks after the pandemic started, were like, where's the Grossy merch? And I was like, wait, so if people want merch from me, it means that there's like a brand happening. And what I realized quickly is like the way that I express myself and talk about myself and use language and design is of a brand. And that brand is me. And so I think the power in someone asking for merch was really exciting. Suddenly I was faced with how to brand myself, and within seconds I had it. Like I just knew. Like it was inspired by the energy of these Mothers Club like charity.
Oh my God, the spiral bound cookbook.
Like
Yes.
the spiral bound mom cookbook.
God.
And you know what I love about these is that they're really simple. There's hardly a photo. I mean, they're just like so. And this is my high school one from my high school. My high school's 25th anniversary.
Oh my God.
And what I love about this is they're ridiculous, right? Like there's 5 lasagna recipes in here.
Oh my
Because
God.
you couldn't tell Maria 1 that Maria 2's lasagna recipe was better and she got in the book and the other one didn't. Like there's like this level of just like simplicity and also like mom fucking energy in there. And I was like, okay, well, I need to make the digital version of this, right? And so all my energy and my vibe, and hopefully you can feel that now that I'm saying it, comes from that place. I'm just on the beginning of making this a business, but already it's like, you know, I was able to quit my job. I'm able to survive. I'm also almost 40, so I have a little bit of money saved. I'm not like, you know, a 20, 30-year-old in New York. But when I was 30, I didn't have a ton of money and I lived in the city. Like, you know, like I've done the work in the past 10 years and now I'm like almost 40 and I'm like, oh, I can like actually like do this full time. Having this happen to me at age 38 is so amazing. If it had happened to me at age 35, at age 30, at age 25, at age 20, you would not be delighted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm still on a journey and I'm nowhere close to being perfect, but I think that, you know, I think I'm just better equipped now than I would have ever been to do it, but I still have so much more to learn.
That's beautiful. It makes you think of that like kind of cheesy, but then true, like what phrase that like timing really does just kind of happen the right way. Like it does, you know?
Yeah. I mean, here I am looking in the face of a global pandemic that was so devastating to so many people, but actually was really something that changed my life for the better. And it's really hard to talk about that, which is why it was so important for me to really focus on helping others.
It's hard not to beat yourself up or feel guilt over the fact that maybe some good happened to you during that time, but I mean, it sounds like you're taking the best lesson. Like you need to make helping people a part of your life if we have the opportunity to do so and the means to do so, which a lot of us fortunately do.
And what I could have never imagined and what I learned really quickly is like the way that I grew up was extremely helpful during the pandemic for other people. Like I was raised for this moment because I know how to create a really comfortable environment. I know how to feed myself. I know how to go grocery shopping. I know how to have the right things at the right time in my pantry. I know how to freeze food for later. I know how to make food for other people. I know how to store things. So like growing up in that kind of like family and that lifestyle allowed me during this time to just be a resource for people, and pairing that with like sort of the colorful like world that I live in and my like silly dumb jokes.
I was gonna say also hearing you talk about like how your family environment prepped you for pandemic. I'm also like, if and when the world starts to fully end, like I'm gonna be hitting you up, like let me join this bunker because I feel like you got all the food in the freezer. Like you're
really well, I always joke that if when the world ended, Bimpy would live the longest because he has the equivalent of like a New York City bodega and like kitchen in his apartment, in his basement. Like he would go
his basement, his basement freezers.
So he has 4 freezers. He has like a huge room that is just canned goods. He has laundry detergent for the next 10 years. Like he just has like everything. He just grew up in the Depression. So he just like would buy the cheapest thing and he would buy multiples. So he would go twice a year to ShopRite, have a can sale, and everything was like dirt cheap and he would just buy it all. So like it's just like you could go shopping in his basement. I did when I was in college. I would come home and I would be like going shopping at Bippy's house.
Well,
like,
you know that like his grandson is like this hot shit food influencer now.
I mean, he watched me on Good Morning America and he read the New York Times article and he knows because I share some stuff with him. I mean, I don't think I'll ever fully understand it, but he wears I've made him Bimpy merch. And one thing that really got me choked up was people saying to me, your relationship with Bimpy reminds me of my relationship with whomever their grandparent was who wasn't around anymore. And during the holidays, I was sharing so many holiday cookie recipes. And a few people this year were like, listen, my grandmother went to the grave with her whatever recipe that I had shared. And this recipe is now like grandma's recipe in our family.
Oh my God, that's like special.
And then like my grandma's recipes are like in here. So it all just kind of comes full circle because I'm like, oh, like I was developing a recipe the other day and I was like, oh wait, my grandma's actual written recipe is in here. So I took that and was able to play around with it. And I recipe test all the family recipes and use the 10 Maria's different lasagnas to make
Dan's lasagna.
Yeah, but you know, it's just like it's really, really cool. And it's really cool that people connect, and people connect not only because they were Italian American, but they connect because they're Jewish, they connect because they're Persian. Some people, even like Japanese people, were messaging me and saying like, we have basement kitchens, or we have kitchens and sheds, or we have like just different places that they just relate. And so, you know, no one's experience is that unique. We all get to kind of universally sort of chat and connect, which is really cool.
As someone who does not come from a culinary family, like Irish Catholic family, like we were eating canned potatoes sort of thing, like bless my parents because they fed us, but 7 children. She was like not trying to do all the cooking. She was like trying to like keep us alive. So I don't have like any of those roots. And I know there's other people too who, you know, don't have the cooking roots or that wasn't part of their family. Like, how do you cultivate that? And like, I would love to have that environment for a family if I have one in the future. Like, can you start that fresh? Like, how do you start that?
First thing you do is you release all the expectations of what you think you're building. And so, which I think that you have a really strong idea of what you think I have, but you don't, because it's my own experience, and that's okay. I'm not saying that just to be like, stop trying to be me, but I'm saying the first thing you could do, it's like, stop trying to make food that looks like the picture of the food. Just make food that you enjoy. And I have like a big world and I'm sharing it, but I'm not an expert in anything. And so I'm just as happy to say that like this recipe that I'm sharing came from this person telling me this, and then that coming, like my friend Liz Persky, she's Jewish. She shared with me her family's funeral cake recipe, which I've rebranded Celebration Cake. Ooh. It's just like really beautiful tradition where she was like, my aunts would come, they would all make this cake, they would all make it a little differently. We would sit around at sit Shiva, eat the cake, talk shit about people. And it was just,
Yes, my dream.
just an amazing bonding experience. So I was able to take that and share it and make it part of my brand with a serious acknowledgement that I'm sharing someone else's story through my lens.
It was something that I really appreciate, and I think a lot of people appreciate about your recipes and your cooking is like, aside from the fact that nothing feels wildly intimidating, like there's no way I could do it, you really invite that, openness. That's a huge hang up for me when I cook. I'm like, I have to do it perfect. Like, I don't have this oil. And it's like, you don't have to do that. You just can
Just
take your own spin on it. Use it as the.
Exactly. Be inspired, but create your own thing.
Okay, so this is a quick flash round. I'm gonna give you a scenario, and then you tell me the Grossy and or Bimpy recipe that you think would be the perfect for this scenario. Cooking dinner for your crush for the first time.
Vodka sauce, 100%. Do you know how many people have gotten laid from the vodka sauce?
Yes.
I get told,
vodka sauce.
and I'm like, oh, okay, but I get told all the time that it works.
Love it. I had a really shitty day. What's for dinner?
Tomato butter sauce. Not my recipe. It's on my website as an homage to the Marcella Hazan recipe. It's the least effort in the world, highest taste payoff. It's incredible.
I need that now. I'm starving. Okay, so I want to bake something for a friend who just moved into a new apartment.
I mean, if you really want to have a project, my mom's Italian bread, which is a version of my mother's Italian bread, makes 4 loaves. It's a great way to stock their freezer. It's a great way for them to have like the most delicious bread in their freezer.
I'm gonna make all these myself. Okay, Next one is I want to have a small dinner party without having a panic attack.
Okay, so you make like a one pot thing. You make a lasagna, you make meatballs with marinara, you make baked stuffed shells, you make eggplant parmesan, you get a really good loaf of bread, you make my garlic bread recipe, and you make a big salad. I have like what I call like the it's the Olive Garden dressing. It's my garlicky oregano dressing.
Ooh.
It's not the Olive Garden dressing. It's like a different version of it, but it's like the classic oregano vinegar. And if you get a ton of really good greens, you could do the tricolor, make a really delicious salad. Ooh. It just is like what everyone wants.
Comforting, warm. I love that. I want to impress my snootiest foodie friends with a meal.
Tell them to fuck off. No.
Yes. Fuck off, you're getting lasagna.
I mean, I do think the vodka sauce is like a win. Like people seem to think that that's like the most amazing thing. So add lobster to it. Add lobster.
Ooh, there you go.
Don't even mix it in. Just dump the lobster meat on top of the pasta and grab bites of it with the vodka sauce. It's like so decadent.
That's genius. Did you get a chance to read
the
article I sent you? Great. Yeah. So it was called My Not So Secret Recipe to Cultivating Adult Friendships. And it's this woman talks about how she's moved to a new place and ended up really bringing people together through food and through dinner parties, which made me think so much of everything.
I know. I have to say, like, in another world, I wrote this article. Like,
you did. You practically did. I
grew up with like family dinners on Friday nights. Like, I grew up with bringing people to the table. My house was a gathering spot. And when I moved to Italy for college, I brought people together. I cooked dinner for everyone in our little house for like 10 people every night. It was a farmer's market. When I moved to San Francisco, I learned other ways people did this. I was best friends with this drag queen named Juanita Moore. She would throw dinner parties. She would print out the menu. She would invite people who didn't know each other, specifically sort of curating not just the food, but the people at the table, which I just thought was so incredible. And so my sort of time at the table has grown to include so many other people's ways of doing it, experiences it. And now I'm sitting at my own 14-person, 10-foot dining table that I drew on a piece of paper and had built for the apartment, which has become like sort of the heart of my house. Hearing
you speak about your kind of like relationship with dinner parties and that you've experienced all these versions, now you have your own version, moonlights the exact same thing you say about your cooking. Like your whole food experience is so naturally communal and like very gracious and learning other people's ways and incorporating them into your own. And it just feels right. It feels very warm. I was going to ask you, as someone who hosts a lot and goes to a lot of dinner parties, like, do you have just like any kind of tips on how to not drive yourself insane when you walk?
Yeah, I think for me, how to not drive me insane and also how to not drive other people insane is definitely don't wait too long to feed people.
Yes.
I think that is a huge problem with dinner parties. when you come to my house, there is going to be something for you to eat immediately. It may
Dear
not
God, yes.
I mean, I eat before I go to other people's houses for dinner because I don't know what I'm getting into.
Mhm.
So, so like have something, have like a cheese board, have snacks, have something. And then this is not, I don't think that a dinner party is the time to try a new recipe. It's the time to make something that you love and you're really good at. You want to be just as comfortable with the food as you are with the people. You know, I love the idea of don't wait for a table to appear. For years, I have so many good mugs. I would have mug parties because if you're sitting on a couch or on the floor, eating out of a mug with a fork, treating it like a bowl, like I would make like a big stew or even like pasta and meatballs out of a mug. It's like, and then I'd be like, okay, so do the pasta and the meatballs first, then you're gonna throw your salad in and you would eat everything out of the same mug. I think having a mug party or like doing something like that is really helpful if you don't have a big table.
Mhm.
And you know, I've thrown many parties where I've just ordered delicious pizza and then I fill in the rest, right? I make a really
Ooh,
good
yeah.
salad. I focus more on a dessert. I have a couple other little things like I make a homemade chili oil or I do some interesting toppings like and then you just have the pizza arrives and it's like easy. Like I have this mantra that I have in my brand. It's like stains are a sign of like a really well lived life. Um,
Oh,
and I
I
think that
love
like
that.
and I think that stains, like my carpet has stains on it. Like that's because I've had people sitting rolling around the floor with pizza in their hands. Like I don't know, you know, like who fuck like okay.
Yeah.
Nothing is that precious that you can't like drop a glass of red wine.
You mentioned your friend was very intentional about kind of bringing people who don't know each other together.
Yeah.
Do you prefer that sort of like a dynamic, or do you like your tried and true? And you can't say both because I know you like both.
I like to throw things together, and I know there's a few people who I call my sort of like my go-to party invites because they are really good conversationalists.
Yes.
So I think you need to suss those people out and always kind of keep them around because they're the people that I mean, I have one friend who every time I throw a party, people text me and say, like, that guy was I had the best conversation with him. Inviting people to your party, having a few of them can make the most out of the time that you're spending. When I was a little, my uncle Tony, we would all be at dinner, like on those long Italian meals, and I would be like so anxious.
Hours in.
I'd be like, can we go? And he was sort of like a drunk Italian. He'd be like, Nessuna fa vecchio sul tavola, which means no one gets old at the table. And it's this amazing saying where it's like time stops. Like you don't rush. Like you're not getting any older. Like nothing else is happening right now. You're sitting at the table and you're eating. I have to remind myself that too, because as the host, I sometimes am like, what's going on in the oven? Is everyone having a good time? And it's like,
Right.
just like the most important thing I can do is just like drop my shoulders, take a deep breath, and like enter a conversation.
God, that is genius.
And I'll tell you this much: I know it's why I get invited to some parties because if I'm not
Yeah.
hosting, I'm an entertainer no matter what, and
The
so
social host.
yeah, exactly.
I absolutely have loved talking to you. I feel like I can't wait to keep following your journey. And for anyone who doesn't follow you already, tell us where we can find you, and also tell me like, do we have a cookbook coming that like coming soon?
Well, I have to
Make
say,
us a spiral cookbook. I'll buy
I
it.
have to say all of these stacks of books on my table, of which there's many more that you can't see, are all part of me doing some research for perhaps something that may look similar to a book. So,
Okay.
so we'll see. You can find me at Grossy Pelosi on Instagram, which is sort of where most things happen right now in my stories and on my feed. I also have a website called damnpelosi.com. I'm on Pinterest at Grossy Pelosi. Say hello, shoot me a DM, all those lovely things.
I feel like your journey is just starting and so well deserved, and like, please never change. You just seem like a truly lovely ray of sunshine. The world needs more rays of sunshine like yourself.